Hello, everyone. It's Sibyl Star, and I'm here to give the astrology forecast for the Cancer new moon that is coming up on July 17th at basically 24 degrees, 56 minutes, or 25 degrees of Cancer. And it's at 11:32 a.m. Pacific time. So, the new moon, every new moon, as well as this one, sets the intention for the next 30 days. It's like planting the seed for the next 30 days. So it's a great time to do a ceremony around this energy. And Cancer is ruled by the moon, which aligns with our emotional body. So it might be really good to do a ceremony that creates a peaceful atmosphere and aligns your physical surroundings with your emotional well-being, because Cancer also rules the home, the family, the emotional body, the most private parts of ourself. And so it's a really good time to get the affairs of your home in order. Good to clear out the energy of your home with sage or cedar, clean your altars, move your furniture around, allow for any stagnant old energy to be released, because that's one of the meanings of this Cancer new moon. I'm actually calling it the Chalice of Love, because Cancer is so much about the heart, the affairs of the heart. It is the first water sign, and it is related to the emotional body. Water is related to the emotional body. Water connects us to everything, as do our emotions, because it is through our emotional body that we connect to the field of energy and vibration. And it is the first place where we react with the outer world. Okay. Cancer is a very sensitive, emotional, and introspective sign. And with this new moon in Cancer, it is a good time to reflect upon the themes that Cancer represents: the affairs of the heart, home, families, and the past. They say, the emotional body, the moon represents the emotional body. And in the emotional body, all of the memories of the soul are encapsulated in emotional form. So often when we remember something, we actually remember how we felt. That's why we can have many people experience the same event, but experience it differently. Right, because it's really how we felt about it, and that's very personal. The evolutionary goal of Cancer is to feel, and is to feel every human emotion. And just like the crab or the turtle is the ancient symbol for Cancer. It represents the energetic blueprint of this zodiac sign, which is hard on the outside, but soft and sweet on the inside. So it's like having such a sensitive heart. One can become defensive and protective of their hearts, because it is necessary at times, because of just how vulnerable and sensitive and open the heart of Cancer can be. But it can also separate us from those we love. Those defenses um, uh, can also cause separation. So it's important for Cancer to share that heart sensitivity as much as possible, for the world needs the love and sensitivity that Cancer holds. Okay. Now, this Cancer new moon is opposite. Oh, you know what? I wanted to show you the actual chart right before we go on. I just wanted to talk about Cancer. All right. Now let's go to the actual chart of the new moon. Okay, so here we have it. We have the sun and moon at 24 degrees, 56 minutes of Cancer, and it's opposite Pluto, the moon, and, Cancer is such a sensitive sign, and Pluto wants honesty, and Pluto can be a little rough on those sensitive, vulnerable places in our hearts, but yet it's also so much about soul healing. Now, this new moon is also in a trine to Neptune, which brings great beauty, and it's also sextile Uranus. So we'll talk about what all of that means. A couple of other things we're going to be talking about today is that this uh, Cancer new moon opposite Pluto is also square the nodes of the moon. It makes what's called a grand cross. Now, about an hour later, the nodes of the moon change signs. Okay. And so this is the actual true node. My understanding, the mean node changed last week. There's a little bit of a difference between the two. And so anyway, but at the Cancer new moon, the nodes of the moon are at 0 degrees, 0 minutes of the Taurus Scorpio axis. Just about an hour later, about 12, I think 12:50 something, Pacific time, the nodes change into Aries and Libra. So we'll be talking about both of them. We also have Saturn here at 6 degrees of Pisces. It's opposite Mars and Athena here in Virgo. We also have Mercury at 12 degrees of Leo. It's square Jupiter. And Venus is at 28 degrees of Leo. She's just getting ready to go retrograde a few days later. So we're going to be talking about that as well. All right. So let us get back to, all right. So anyway, back to what all of this means. So this new moon is opposite Pluto, trine Neptune, and sextile Uranus. And these are all the outer transpersonal planets. And all of these outer planets bring in a collective energy, while Cancer is the most personal of all the signs because it's ruled by the moon and brings in affairs of the heart. So I feel like it's bringing in the personal and collective heart are both impacted by this new moon. So first off, Pluto opposite this moon. Oppositions bring in relationships, and it is often through relationships. It's how we learn from others and how others often mirror back to us something that we cannot see about ourselves. It shows us, and I feel like this is showing us where we feel most vulnerable and unprotected. And it has the potential to crack the shell of Cancer and open the heart. This is a very heart opening aspect. Cancer, the archetype is the archetype of the mother. And one of the shadow sides is that it often hides behind caring for the needs of others because it's often easier than getting our own needs met. And so I feel like this is one of the themes it is bringing up. It is bringing up deep parts of the soul, may be activated as to what is true and authentic and aligned with the soul, because it's always about soul healing, but it may not meet the needs of others, which can be scary for Cancer energy. What is true and authentic for you? There may be some deep truths about what you really want and need may be revealed. Okay. And if you are able to listen, we'll have the potential to bring self-empowerment as to what feeds your soul and what is draining it. And as part of the soul healing process, Pluto is activating an emotional purification process, and it can bring a healing crisis, because repressed emotions is one of the things, well, it causes energy blockages, and is one of the things that can impact our physical health as well as our emotional body. It is old trauma is stored there, which needs to be released. So I feel like this new moon has the potential for heart healing and heart opening personally and collectively, but we must feel it to heal it. So what I want to recommend is, and I've had this experience myself just in the last few days and leading up to this, of having these massive heart healings and feeling like I need to cry, to release, to and however it is, it needs to happen, to scream, to move, whatever it is. It's about releasing the energy to open your heart more fully, and to just to feel it as it comes through, and you don't have to name it. And actually, I would say don't name it, because if you name it, there a story often is attached to it. And this is not about the story. This is about releasing the old energetic trauma and feeling it, to move it. And with and also to not judge it, because this is the other piece. I feel like Pluto and Capricorn, one of the shadows there is judgment, as that we are releasing the trauma and pain of judgment of ourselves and others. That is so much a part of this paradigm in which we have been living. It's about unplugging from the paradigm and healing your heart and remembering that you are divine love. Each of us are the embodiment of divine love. There's this old paradigm that, there is something wrong with us, that we are, came in as sinners. That is not true. Part of our ascension process is the awakening and remembering to the fact of our own divinity and divine love, and that our heart is a chalice of love, and our heart is a chalice of light. And this is being activated and opened, I feel, as part of this ascension process. We are each a beautiful being of light, and the heart being a chalice of light, allowing this chalice, the flame in our heart, to be activated and to glow with this love. That is love that lights the light, or that activates the light. Cancer is the archetype of the mother, and this new moon is trine Neptune, which is known as the divine heart. And I think this is also reminding us that we are never alone, that we're always held in the arms of the great mother and her unconditional love, and that we ourselves are divine love. That we are divine love in human form. It reminds me of that tarot card, the Ace of Cups, because it is so often a chalice, and a chalice that has much love and light both pouring out of it. And it is the opening of our heart and of our heart chakra. Okay. Uranus is sextile the Cancer new moon, which may allow for sudden heart openings and the aha moments that come with it. So it's a very powerful new moon for heart healing and heart opening. Okay. And releasing old material that we no longer need. Now, I've said, of course, it's also in a grand cross or a grand square, whatever way we want to say this, with the nodes of the moon. And so, of course, the nodes are all about destiny. And when the nodes are activated, we're at a crossroads in our lives. Now, of course, if you have planets that are in the early degrees of fixed signs or the late degrees of cardinal signs, it might be a personal crossroads. Otherwise, it's more of a collective crossroads. Okay. But the nodes at the new moon, as I showed you, is at 0 degrees, 0 minutes of Taurus Scorpio, but change signs later in the day. And it's about releasing emotional baggage so we can be in the present moment, which is really all that exists, and embrace our true self-worth as beings of love. It's kind of like the last teaching of the last 18 months of this really deep Taurus Scorpio teaching. And then an hour later, they move into 29 degrees of Aries and Libra. Now, the new moons change signs every 18 months. So we have been in a process of healing self-worth issues, but now are changing into Aries and Libra, which is about finding balance and integration of self and other, and the dance that it takes to accomplish this. And of course, the North Node is our way forward, and Aries is the warrior, the pioneer. And so it brings in autonomy of self, requires courage, facing our fears. And the South Node is about the past and what we are bringing forward and what needs to be released. Libra is about the other and developing empathy. But in its shadow, one can lose oneself and others through compromising who we are and a desire to be liked. We might call this people pleasing. Ultimately, it's about the polarity within ourselves. It is about the integration of the masculine and feminine, the doing and the being, self versus other, the integration of the dark and light within, which is also the integration of the shadow. And when we are able to do this, it allows us to step out of the us versus them mentality. Because the truth is, we are everything. We hold everything within us. And once we can accept and integrate the parts of ourselves that we don't like and project them, and when we do that, we project it onto others. And then it becomes the us versus them mentality. But the truth, it is the paradox of the greater reality that we hold all of this within us, everything. And this brings us into unity consciousness. This is also a karmic reset, which asks us to release the paradigm of suffering and limitation of the old frequencies of separation that exist within us. And I feel that it is both. It is the changing of the signs, as well as Pluto squaring the signs. And Pluto's going to be squaring the signs up through October. Okay. But anyway, as we heal the separation within ourselves, we heal the separation and divisiveness in the external world, for it is a reflection of our inner world. And it's just so important to remember that. We want to have peace in the world. We have to be the peace. We have to be the balance. That is the and we have to meet the world, with love. Okay. But it brings us into unity consciousness, which is a fifth dimensional reality. This is one of the ways we are shifting. And it is the basis of the great shift in consciousness that we are experiencing. Now, the North Node is the way forward, and it is in Aries. And so Aries does indicate a new beginning, new beginnings and vital life force energy. And this Aries, when the North Node moves into Aries, it is going to, when the nodes move into 29 degrees of Aries Libra, it is going to activate the solar eclipse of April 19th, which was so much about that vital life force energy of Aries and, what makes me come alive. And I just love this Howard Thurman quote. It's don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do that. For what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I love this quote as well. It says, we are artists of our own life. Don't let anyone else paint it. And as I said, Pluto, we are at a crossroads as Pluto squares the nodes. It is exact on July 25th, but in effect through October. And, Pluto is so much about self-empowerment, and self-empowerment is showing us that self-empowerment comes through following what makes you come alive and fills you with life force. And as we are at these crossroads, we are in the process of creation. And it is a question that has come into my life recently, and I feel like it is so appropriate here. It is, how can I be in service to the light? And it is the light of your own heart. How can I be in service to the light of my own heart? Please show me my next steps. So we have a couple of other things going on. We have Mercury square Jupiter at this time. And this, Mercury's god of the mind, and Jupiter is very inspirational. And so it's inspirational words. This can bring high hopes for the future with a positive and broad outlook. But it's also important to pay attention to detail, because this can be a very big picture kind of an energy. But also pay attention to the detail. And it does have one small shadow, which is there could be a tendency for overconfidence or promising too much or overestimating our abilities. Saturn in Pisces is opposite Mars and Athena in Virgo. And I feel like, Saturn and Virgo are both very practical kinds of an energy. And Mars is our way forward. Okay. And Athena is just wisdom, so it's kind of like the wisdom of practical solutions and the implementation of some of our creative ideas. But it could also bring frustration, feeling like other people are standing in our way or standing in your way. But oppositions indicate someone is mirroring something to you about yourself, mirroring something in you. So maybe ask the question, if you feel like someone is getting in your own way, they're mirroring to you, how am I getting in my own way? And of course, Saturn and Virgo both. Saturn is in Capricorn are kind of like the inner judge, whereas Virgo is the inner critic. And so they may both be coming up. That's how we're getting in our own way, through self-criticism and self-judgment. It is important to have discernment. Discernment, I feel, is different than judgment. Judgment is when we label things good or bad, especially ourselves or others. Whereas discernment is making choices of what really serves our highest good in the best way possible. So it's making choices. But so discernment and constructive criticism helps us when we can see what improvements need to be done. But when we take it personally, we take it inside ourselves and judge and criticize ourselves, is when we get ourselves into trouble and get into our own way. So to know that it's both there. So it's having the ability also to be objective, to be able to hear criticism and use it constructively without taking it inward. All right. There's one more thing that is just super important, and that is Venus retrograde. Now, Venus is not yet retrograde at the new moon, but she goes retrograde just a few days later on the 22nd, actually 5 days later. But she's in the retrograde zone. She's slowing down. She's turning around. So the teaching is there. I'm also going to be creating a whole video, actually a PowerPoint video. I'm kind of into doing those now, about this, because I think it's super important. Anyway, so Venus goes retrograde on July 22nd at 28 degrees of Leo, but she's not out of the retrograde zone until October 7th. And she's been in the retrograde zone, oh golly, sometime in June. I don't actually remember that day. Anyway, but if you have planets, I would say 25 to 30 degrees of fixed signs, and even early degrees of mutable signs, especially Leo or Aquarius, though this might have a really deeper impact. So anyway, so what is this about? So Venus, she's the goddess of love and the face of the divine feminine. And some of the areas she's involved with are relationships, self-love, self-worth, beauty, and creativity. And when we say a planet is retrograde, it means that they appear to be moving backward. It's an optical illusion. She's actually not. It's just a change in the speeds of orbit of the planets. Venus is retrograde, the least of all of the planets. She's retrograde for 6 weeks, 40 days and 40 nights, every 18 months. Some ancient cultures saw her as the goddess of heaven and earth, Inanna, or some called Ishtar. And so her disappearance from the night sky for 40 days and 40 nights is the basis for their myth of the descent of Inanna, where she takes an inner journey for renewal and regeneration. So when Venus goes retrograde, it is our journey for a reevaluation in our lives. And Venus is an evening star before she goes retrograde, but when she returns, after her disappearance from the night sky, she will rise as a morning star when direct again. So what does this mean for our lives? I feel like it is always a time to reevaluate our relationships, our intimate relationships, our friendships. Is this what I want? Sometimes, we we're seeing a change in resonant fields, and people that have been in our lives, even sometimes for quite a while, for whatever reason, they kind of fall away. Or we can look at our relationships, and say, is this what I want? It may be time to renegotiate the terms of relationships. And like I said, we may discover we no longer resonate with certain friendships. But it's really about the reevaluation of what has value in life and how do I value myself. We might have those from the past show up, from this lifetime and others with whom we have unfinished business. And they may appear. Venus also rules finances, so a reevaluation of our finances, reassessment, reevaluation of our finances may show up. But while Venus is retrograde, it's not a particularly good time to make decisions because clarity may not come until Venus goes direct again. So it is a time to really evaluate. And, Venus is associated with the heart chakra. Once again, here we are, the chalice of light, and it's being lit by the sign of Leo. And Venus in Leo is the sign ruled by the sun, the creative fire of spirit that lives within each one of us. Venus in Leo she guides us, she informs us, she tells us to follow our passion and what brings us joy. And Venus in Leo is also the archetype of the queen, or a woman who knows her worth. Okay. Now there's a couple of more things that make this particular Venus retrograde kind of special. So the first one is she goes retrograde on July 22nd, at least here in the United States. There's places in the world where it's the 23rd, but here in the United States it's the 22nd. And so that's, and that is the feast day of Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene brings in the sacred sexuality, the sacred marriage. Mary Magdalene was called a whore and a prostitute and was denigrated for millennia. But now, as we reclaim our sexuality as sacred, she is re-emerging as a divine being. And many women feel deeply connected to her. And so I feel like this is a time where we can release any body shame and resistance to fully embracing our womanhood and our feminine power, to heal old patriarchal wounds, or the divine feminine that lives within each of us, okay? Because we all have the divine feminine. But to heal any patriarchal wounds around the divine feminine and open up the gifts of sacred sexuality and experience wholeness and fully express all aspects of the divine feminine and divine masculine through the sacred marriage within ourselves and with others. Okay. And the third piece of this that makes it even more special, this is conjunct the star Alphard, which is the fixed star Alphard, which is in the brightest star of the constellation of Hydra. And Mary Magdalene is associated with Hydra. Some say she came from there. And Hydra is the water serpent. And it represents the Kundalini, or vital life force that runs through our body and brings enlightenment as it rises up our spine. It is the power of the divine feminine. It brings in an embodied spirituality, as we also have Uranus and Taurus square this Venus, which can allow for spontaneous Kundalini awakenings. Because as we are involved in our ascension process, we are going in our bodies. It is the activation of our own light bodies. Within our physical body, our bodies will be changing. They are changing so that we can allow for more light and hold more light. And so we might also want to get involved in tantric practices during this time, or we might suddenly become interested where we just really weren't before, because that Kundalini is wanting to rise, and Tantra really helps it. And we have white Tantra and red Tantra, and white Tantra is working with your own Kundalini. And there are many practices, although you might want to be involved in one that involves a partner. And the Kundalini is a creative life force that is used to create children of the body or children of the mind, creative projects. It is activating the divine feminine creatrix coming from the cosmic womb, the divine fire of creation, and helping us remember that we are the sacred embodiment of divine light. And I want to close with the Sabian symbol for this new moon, which is just so powerful. It is a leader of men wrapped in an invisible cloak of power. That invisible cloak of power is the power of love. It is remembering that we are the sacred embodiment of divine love. And the only way to heal this world is to allow more of our higher selves to emerge. It is the divine love that lives in our hearts, is our invisible cloak of power. And an affirmation that I like to say is that I am the sacred embodiment of divine love. For when we remember this is when we will ascend into a fifth dimensional reality. Right. This is a beautiful new moon. I wish you all healing and your hearts to be open and full. Blessings to all and namaste. And if you would like a reading, all of my information is in the description box below. All right. Have a wonderful month.